Om Ajnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Sakshurmilitan Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratushe Namaha. Vanchakalpatarupyascha Kripasindubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanepyo Vaishnavepyo Namo Namaha. Today we are reading from Sri Caitanya-caritāmṛta, Ādi-līlā, chapter 16, and we are at text 92. I am surprised you are not a literary student and do not have long experience in studying the Shastra. How have you been able to explain all these critical points? Hearing this and understanding the Pandita's heart, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied in a humorous way, "My dear sir, I do not know what is good composition and what is bad, but whatever I have spoken must be understood to have been spoken by Mother Saraswati." When he heard this judgment from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Pandit sorrowfully wondered why Mother Saraswati wanted to defeat him through a small boy. "I shall offer prayers and meditation to the goddess of learning," the champion concluded, "and ask her why she has insulted me so greatly through this boy." Saraswati had in fact induced the champion to compose his verse in an impure way. Furthermore, when it was discussed, she covered his intelligence, and thus the Lord's intelligence was triumphant. When the poetic champion was thus defeated, all the Lord's disciples sitting there began to laugh loudly. But Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked them not to do so, and he addressed the poet as follows.
Which text are you reading?
This is text 99.
Okay.
"You are the most learned scholar and the topmost of all great poets, for otherwise how could such fine poetry come from your mouth? Your poetic skill is like the constant flow of the waters of the Ganges. I find no one in the world who can compete with you. Even in the poetic composition of such great poets as Bhavabhuti, Jayadev and Kalidas, there are many examples of faults. Such mistakes should be considered negligible. One should see only how such poets have displayed their poetic power. I am not even fit to be your disciple. Therefore, kindly do not take seriously whatever childish impudence I have shown. Please go back home, and tomorrow we may meet again, so that I may hear discourses on the Shastras from your mouth." In this way, both the poet and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went back to their homes, and at night the poet worshipped Mother Saraswati. In a dream, the goddess informed him of the Lord's position, and the poetic champion could understand that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. On the next morning, the poet came to Lord Chaitanya and surrendered unto his lotus feet. The Lord bestowed his mercy upon him and cut off all the bondage of material attachment. The poetic champion was certainly most fortunate. His life was successful by dint of his vast learning and erudite scholarship, and thus he attained the shelter of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur has described all these incidents elaborately. I have only presented the specific incidents he has not described. the nectarian drops of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes can satisfy the senses of everyone who hears them. Praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishnadas, narrate Sri Caitanya-caritāmṛta, following in their footsteps. Chapter 17. The pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his youth. Let me offer my respectful obeisances to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by whose mercy even unclean Yavanas become perfectly well-bred gentlemen by chanting the holy names of the Lord. Such is the power of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. O glories to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, O glories to Lord Nityananda Prabhu, O glories to Advaita Acharya, and O glories to the devotees of Lord Chaitanya. Exhibiting his scholarship, beauty, and fine dress, Lord Chaitanya danced, chanted, and distributed the holy name of the Lord to awaken dormant love of Krishna. Thus Lord Sri Gaura Sundar shone in his youthful pastimes. As he entered his youth, the Lord decorated himself with ornaments, dressed himself in fine cloth, garlanded himself with flowers, and smeared himself with sandalwood. By dint of pride in his education, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, not caring for anyone else, defeated all kinds of learned scholars while executing his duties. In his youth, the Lord, on the plea of disturbances of the bodily air, exhibited his ecstatic love of Krishna. Accompanied by his confidential devotees, he enjoyed various pastimes in this way. Purport by Srila Swāmī Maharaj. According to Ayurvedic treatments, the entire physiological system is conducted by three elements, namely Vayu, Pitta, and Kapha, air, bile, and mucus. Secretions within the bodies transform into other secretions like blood, urine, and stool. But if there are disturbances in the metabolism, the secretions turn into kapha, mucus, by the influence of the air within the body. According to Ayurvedic system, when the secretion of bile and formation of mucus disturb the air circulation within the body, 59 varieties of disease may occur. One of such diseases is craziness. On the plea of disturbance of the bodily air and metabolism, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu acted as if crazy. Thus, in his school, he began to explain the grammar of verbs through Krishna consciousness, explaining everything in grammar in relationship to Krishna. The Lord induced his students to refrain from worldly education, for it is better to become Krishna conscious and in this way attain the highest perfectional platform. On these grounds, Srila Jiva Goswami later compiled the grammar entitled Harinamamrita Vyakarana. People in general consider such explanations crazy. Therefore, the Lord's purpose in his attitude of craziness was to explain nothing within our experience but Krishna consciousness, for everything may be dovetailed with Krishna consciousness. These pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu have been very vividly described in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Adi-kanda, chapter 12. Therefore, the Lord went to Gaya. Then he met Srila Ishvara Puri. In Gaya, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was initiated by Ishvara Puri, and immediately afterwards he has exhibited signs of love of Godhead. He again displayed such system after returning home. Therefore the Lord delivered love of Krishna to his mother Sachi Devī, nullifying her offense at the feet of Advaita Acharya. Thus there was a meeting with Advaita Acharya, who later had a vision of the Lord's universal form. Purport. One day Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was sitting on the throne of Vishnu in the house of Srivas Prabhu, and in a mood of his own he said, "My mother has offended the lotus feet of Advaita Acharya. Unless she nullifies this offense at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava, it will not be possible for her to achieve love of Krishna." Hearing this, all the devotees went to bring Advaita Acharya there. While coming to see the Lord, Advaita Acharya was glorifying the characteristics of Mother Sachi Devī, and thus upon arriving he fell down on the ground in ecstasy. Then, under the instruction of Lord Chaitanya, Sachi Devī took advantage of this situation to touch Advaita Acharya's lotus feet. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very much pleased by his mother's action, and he said, "Now my mother's offense at the lotus feet of Advaita Acharya has been rectified, and she may have love of Krishna without difficulty." By this example, Lord Chaitanya taught everyone that although one may be very much advanced in Krishna consciousness, if one offends the lotus feet of a Vaishnava, his advancement will not bear fruit. We should therefore be very much conscious not to offend a Vaishnava. Caitanya-caritāmṛta has described such an offense as follows. As a mad elephant may trample all the plants in the garden, so by committing one offense at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava, one may spoil all the devotional service he has accumulated in his life. After this incident, one day, Advaita Acharya Prabhu requested Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to display the universal form he had very kindly shown Arjuna. Lord Chaitanya agreed to this proposal, and Advaita Acharya was fortunate enough to see the universal form of the Lord. Srivas Thakur then worshipped Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by the process of Abhishek. Sitting on a cot, the Lord exhibited transcendental opulence. So we stop here from reading Sri Caitanya-caritāmṛta, Ādi-līlā, chapter 17, the pastimes of the Lord in his youth, Ki Jai. Jai Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Om Vishnupad Srila Bhaktivedanta Swāmī Prabhupada Ki Jai. Then we're reading In the Light of Loving Devotion from talks from Srila Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Rakak Siddhadev Goswami Maharaj. And we are at the chapter The Slightest Touch, chapter 11. No demand. The higher devotees feel that even desiring to see the Lord is also some kind of enjoyment. They say, no, we won't disturb his sweet will. Whenever he likes, he may call for us. Then we shall get the chance to see him. Otherwise not. We want Krishna, but not to order him. O Krishna, come and stand before us. We want to see you for our satisfaction. This demand is a kind of imposition by our exploiting nature. The devotees do not want that for the satisfaction of their eye or their inner hankering. the Lord has to come and show himself. This is not the conception of the higher devotees. They do not allow these thoughts to enter. Rather, they think, whenever Krishna feels the necessity, he will call for me. Then I shall have the chance of seeing him. They never desire Krishna to serve them, supply them, or give them darshan of himself. To impose our whim on the Lord is not service proper. Whatever Krishna likes, he may do. We shall consider ourselves fortunate. If we are given a chance to supply whatever is necessary for his service, we are to place ourselves fully at the disposal of that supreme autocrat. Who is to command us, to order us, and never to carry out any order from us? But it is the Lord's nature that he is eager to supply everything for his devotees. I bear the responsibility of acquiring and protecting the necessities of my fully dependent devotees, who are always absorbed in thought of me and who worship me in every way. Still, devotees of higher realization do not prefer Krishna to supply them with anything or serve them in any way. Their Ananya Bhakti, their purest devotion, is of this quality. They sincerely feel he is our Lord through faith. We don't want to see him in order to satisfy our lower faculties, that he does not indeed exist. We have no capacity to see him. A lower kind of faith means trying to become the subject and making him the object. A higher kind of faith, a more intense faith, proves that he is the original subjective cause of everything. A place in the harmony. How is one to maintain his position within the current of Krishna consciousness? That we must know. That current is always flowing, and to maintain one's position within it requires some force, some energy. The attempt to maintain oneself may apparently seem to be something passive or static. It may appear that in relation to the infinite, no progress is progress. But in fact, it requires effort, it is dynamic, and to maintain one's position is unfavorable in unfavorable circumstances is not very easy. But to feel separation from the Lord, to feel pain in the striving for harmony, that I'm not having any place in the sweet harmony of relations with him, that is more intense than to feel I have got him. It is a very peculiar thing, the greatest necessity for him, that necessity is he himself. In this sense, to approach him, to come to him, is to get him. I once delivered a lecture at a meeting in Madras, Chennai, where some scholars of the Madhva school had made arrangement to honor the birthday of Madhva Acharya. They made me the president at the meeting at Nagarji Sharma. And Nagarji Sharma, a professor of the Madhva school, was to deliver lectures there. At the beginning of the meeting, I gave some introductory talk, and there I mentioned about Mahaprabhu's teaching. Trinat apisunichina, taror ivar sahasnuna, amanina manadena, kirtaniya sada hari. One is humbler than a blade of grass, more forbearing than a tree, and give due honor to others without desiring it for himself, is qualified to always chant the holy name of Krishna. Then, when Professor Sharma gave his lecture, I traced there is a slight touch, a remark that to think one's own self to be meaner than a blade of grass, what is the achievement there? To think oneself to be very low, very mean, how can that be the means to attain the higher things. I got in his speech a slight remark of this kind. Afterwards, at the conclusion of the meeting, again I got the chance to speak, and I mentioned, who can see himself as small, as mean, is in the relativity of the big. The Jiva soul can only think of himself as lowest of the lowest when he is having a real conception of the infinite. As much as he can have some conception of the infinite, he cannot but think himself in comparison as meanest of the mean. Genuine realization about the Lord is measured by this standard. What and how much can the soul see? Who sees himself as big will see other things as small, but one who is really living in relation with the infinite cannot but see himself as smallest of the small, meanest of the mean. That is the real criterion of our improvement, of our journey towards consciousness of the infinite, towards Him. Jai, very beautiful. Jai, Srila Bhakti Rakak Śrīdhar Swāmī Maharaj ki Jai. In the light of loving devotion ki Jai. Jai, Srila Gurudev. Hariyaraya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Nama Hariyaraya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Nama
Hariharaya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha
Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha
Yadavaya Madhavaya Kesavaya Namaha
Gopala Govinda Ram Sri Madhusudan
Gopala Govinda Ram Sri Madhusudan
Giridhari Gopinath Namo
Giridhari Gopinath Namo
Sri Caitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Chandra
Caitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Chandra
Radhadara Siva Sari Gora Bhakta Vrinda
Radhadara Siva Sari Gora Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Rupa Sanatan Bhata Raguna
Jaya Rupa Sanatan Bhakta Raguna
Sri Jiva Gopala Bhata Dasa Raguna
Jiva Gopala Bhata Dasa Raguna
Ejai Gosai Kori Charana Bandha Yaite Vignana Savista Puram Ejai Gosai Jamuitarada Dansavara Parare Numara Pachaka Dandira Charana Sevi Bhakta Saneva Janame More Ādi-līlā Ejai Gosai Jabe Braja Kolaba Radha Krishna Nitya Lila Purila Prakash Anand Devala Hari Bhaja Vrindavan Sri Guru Vaishnava Pare Machayama Sri Guru Vaishnava Padma Koriya Hari Nam Sankirtana Kore Narottama Das Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare
Hare Rama 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 Krishna, Hare Hare,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama, Rama Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Nitai Gora Haribo, Haribo, Nitai Gora Haribo, Nitai Gora Haribo, Haribo, Nitai Gora Haribo, Jaya Saparikar Sisi Guru Kuranga Sundar Radha Giridhar Ki Jai. Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Rakak Śrīdhar Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Sri Rupa Nuga Varga Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swāmī Prabhupada Ki Jai. Sri Caitanya-caritāmṛta Sri Acharya Vrinda Ki Jai. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Sri Caitanya-caritāmṛta Ki Jai. Sri Caitanya-caritāmṛta Ki Jai. Sri Caitanya-caritāmṛta London Chapter Ki Jai. Kolkartas Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees Ki Jai. All glories to the world devotees Ki Jai. Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande.
Hare Ho.